everybody, this is Nick from Android Headlines. Today I'm going to be bringing you a video showing you the physical differences between the Galaxy Note 2 and the Galaxy Note 3. First thing you're going to notice sitting here on the table is that the two, although they look sort of similar, it's a very different design coming from one to the other. The Galaxy Note 2, much like the Galaxy S3, has a much more smooth design, has rounded corners. The edges of the phone are very smooth, and it feels like one big piece of plastic where the glass meets. You can't really tell the difference between the two. The Note 3, on the other hand, has a raised edge here. You'll also notice that there is a much thinner bezel. The screen on the Note 3 is a tad bit bigger than the Note 2's, although the body size themselves are pretty much the same. The Note 3 is just a hair higher, but it's also a hair less wide. The home buttons themselves, the Note 2 has a tad bit bigger home button than the Note 3 does, and the Note 2, when you're pressing that home button, doesn't make a whole lot of sound. The Note 3 is an audible click. So you'll notice those right off the top. Other than that, on the front, they look pretty similar. Moving to the sides, you'll see that the Note 3 has this ridge design on here, whereas the Note 2 has a much more chrome looking design. You'll also see that the power buttons are moved up just a bit on the Note 3, just a hair. Going to the other side, you'll notice that the volume rocker is also moved up, this time quite a bit more than the power button was. This makes it much more convenient for pressing during a phone call. The Note 2's is in kind of a weird place, and it's a little bit smaller. It made it difficult to change the volume on a phone call. Doesn't seem like it would, but if you've ever used one, you probably know what I'm talking about. Checking out the bottom of both of these phones, you're going to see that the charging port on the Note 3 is larger than the Note 2's. That's because Samsung has a second port here that not only charges the device faster, but it also enables it to use USB 3.0, which theoretically is 10 times the transfer speed, although I don't know how many people use USB as much on their phones anymore. The other thing you'll notice right off the top here is the speaker on the Note 2 is going to be on the back. Note 3 speaker is going to be on the bottom. This was a great design decision on Samsung's part. The speaker on the back was always a terrible decision. I always hated that on every phone I ever had, and I'm really glad they finally did away with that. Looking at the S Pen here, you'll see that the Note 2's fits quite snugly in the case. It only fits in there one way though, so it flushes straight with the edge here. If you try to flip it over the other way, you can't put it in at all. Note 3, on the other hand, is a symmetrical pen. So you can put it in any way you choose, flip it upside down, doesn't really matter. Makes it a lot easier to just put it in when you're using it in everyday tasks. The only thing that's a little annoying is the Note 2 comes out really easily, whereas the Note 3, you gotta grab it a little more. It's both a blessing and a curse because the only time I ever dropped my Note 2, the pen went flying across the room. Hopefully I won't drop my Note 3, but if I do, I imagine the pen won't go flying out again. Now, as we have them here back to back, you'll see the back is quite different. The Note 2 uses that lovely slippery Samsung plastic that many despise, including myself. And the Note 3, on the other hand, uses this nice pleather backing. It feels really, really good in the hand. It's a little bit grippy. I don't know if you can tell, but you know, your hand does grip it a little bit more, whereas on the Note 2, it's really slippery. The other problem with this slippery back is that as soon as it got cold at all outside, this thing goes flying right out of your hand. So far, I haven't noticed that issue with the Note 3. This thing stays pretty nice and grippy no matter what the weather seems to be. It's really just generally a much, much better material. The other thing you'll notice is the size of the cameras. If you check out the actual lens itself, the lens is much bigger on the Note 3 versus the Note 2. It seems like this enables it to get better light. It just has better quality pictures in general. Not as much of that smartphone haze that you find going on in some of these things. It's still got the single LED flash, not a whole lot of difference there. The headphone jacks are pretty much in the same spot. It's still a removable back on both of them. The thing is in the same spot. And it just snaps back on for both of them as well. So it is still a plastic back, as some people have pointed out, but this material on the outside does not feel plastic, and that I think is really what's important here. The S Pen itself, as I showed you earlier, is a much more symmetrical look. The other thing that is of note is that the S Pen button is a little bit higher on the Note 3's S Pen. So this thing fits in your hand really nicely. Although the Note 2s did as well, I think Samsung has just, again, improved the ergonomics of this thing even more. You'll also notice that the S Pen in the Note 3 is a little bit thinner, which, depending on the size of your hands, may or may not be a good thing. It's also a little bit lighter, which is kind of nice when holding it, but it feels a little bit cheaper than the Note 2's. I feel like the Note 2's S Pen is just a higher quality feeling S Pen. Everything else about these phones, pretty much the same. If you like one, you're probably going to like the other. If it's too big of a phone for you, the other one won't help you at all because it's not much of a difference in size whatsoever. That's going to be it for our video today. Hope you enjoyed watching.